So I heard that the theme for this month was delight or joy, and I thought I'd speak about maybe a few suggestions as to how to induce joy in one's life, how to induce more joy, bump it up. The premise being that when you are living in your own full heart of joy, when you're living in your own happiness, it's not only great for you, and of course it is, but it's really nice for everyone you meet. It's really nice because a lot of people are carrying a pretty heavy cross. And so when you are shining, when your light is blazing, it's comforting. It reminds them. So we do this not in some selfish way, not in some narcissistic effort, but rather we do this for all, for the good of all. So some suggestions. The first is a return to innocence. The sense that we used to have when we were younger, perhaps, of being just not knowing much, for one thing, not needing to know much, and being very immersed in our world, in communion, rather than in conceptualization. You understand that difference? Communion. Children, we love watching them because we can see they're just immersed. There seems to be no separation. They're just immersed in their world. As we get older, we develop more habits of conceptualization, where we're constantly talking about our experience, but maybe not as much experiencing it. So this return to innocence, this return to what one Zen teacher called don't know mind, it's a lovely phrase, don't know mind, don't have to know much, is very delightful. So I encourage us all to let ourselves have this return to innocence. Another one is to delight in another's joy, to really let yourself have a feeling of warmth in your heart when you see that someone else has accomplished something or won something or is just having a good old time. There can be a natural human tendency to, when we hear about another's great joy or success, there can be a human tendency sometimes to have a little collapse inside that says, well, they're doing better than I am, or they're luckier than I am, or they're having a better time than I am. If you possibly can, switch this around and let yourself feel real happiness for another's success, for another's joy, for the accomplishment. It exponentially magnifies your own experience of joy in your life. It's an incredible source of joy. And then when you say to someone, I'm so happy for you, they're going to feel that you mean it. They're going to feel your sincerity when you say to your friend who's just done something, maybe they even beat you out on something, and you say, I'm really happy for you, and you mean it. It's very beautiful in the heart. It also creates trust, because we all know the difference between when someone really is getting the beauty of our trip, when one of our friends is really on our side. You can really feel they're the person you want to go and tell about your success or your great thing that just happened, or you just fell in love or whatever. They're the one you want to run to because they're going to celebrate it with you. And it creates such a deep feeling of trust in friendship. So yes, let yourself have this delicious gift of just inclining your awareness to feeling great happiness for other people's joy. Another one along these lines. Jack Kerouac, the beat poet from long ago, not that long ago, but within our lifetimes, but he said, be in love with your life. Be in love with your life and let yourself admit that you really love your life. Sometimes we go along and we have a list of complaints, the things that we'd like to tweak a bit, or maybe more than a bit. Here's some of my friends arriving. Hi, dears. We're just talking about inducing happiness, inducing joy in life. Be in love with your life. Admit it. It's almost like you have this secret, and sometimes you don't actually realize it until it's sort of slipping away. Don't we know that? We've seen people who get the diagnosis and suddenly they're realizing how much they appreciate. They're really living each day. But we don't need to wait for a diagnosis for that. Be in love with your life right now. And let yourself know that. Let yourself really know that. Another component of this, and being in love with your life, is celebrating time with those you love, because time is really racing by, and sometimes we take for granted the people we love the most in our lives. We take for granted that they're there, right? Not really tracking truly how impermanent the situation is. So another inducement of joy is to really have a sense when you're with your loved ones that this is a quiet celebration. You don't have to make a big heavy thing of it, like this may be the last time we ever see each other. But rather that inside, internally, you have this, just a quiet little fire glowing inside, feeling, wow, this is like a real celebration. Right now I'm hosting some friends from Dublin. They've hosted me I've taught in Dublin for nearly 20 years, and I've stayed with them countless times, and I've never had the opportunity to host them. And so, of course, here in the summer in the Hamptons, it's a pretty nice place to visit, and so they've come to visit, and it has been just this wondrous event for me. I feel so lucky to be able to spend this time together and reciprocate in some small measure the incredible generosity that they've shown me. And every day we've been together these last few days, I feel like we're having a little party, even though we're not doing much, but it just is like, so really have that with even the people you're with every day that you love dearly. There will come a day when you will be parted. So remember that and let them know. Another great joy. This one I like a lot. Do something fun each day. Like make it a little practice, because when you do, it puts those happy endorphins all through your body. Do something fun each day. All the other animals know how to play, right? And we as children knew how to play. Play was the name of the game. But we forget. And sometimes we forget, not even that we forget, we feel a little guilty about play. We feel a little bit like, we're playing hooky and we should be working, especially here in America, we should be working, producing, accomplishing. But it's amazing how when you interject play in your life, how much clearer you are in all the other activities of your life, right? How much clearer you are in work and in your relationships and in your joy. So my recommendation in this regard is Do something that's fun for you, something fun for you specifically. What's fun for you may not be fun for someone else. One of the two young people who were with us rode their bikes from the top of Springs all the way to Montauk Point and back yesterday. Now, they had a blast. For me, that would not be fun. But for them, they loved it. But, something that's, fun for me is that I went with their parents to this great little restaurant on a bay and sat there and had a fantastic meal and watched the birds. And so do something, whatever it is for you. Maybe you like to sit home and knit. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to look a particular way. But as long as you know that this is filling my own well somehow. The Navajo have a saying, may you walk in beauty. Beauty is actually an experience inside of you. So you don't have to walk in, the Luxembourg Gardens in Paris to experience beauty. But let yourself be aware that you are sensing beauty. It will induce a feeling of joy. I was in India with my teacher. I had gone there to interview him. It was the first time I had met him. I had gone there to interview him for Yoga Journal, and I'd been to India many times before, and I had developed almost an allergy to lots of components of India, the smells, the sights. And he lived across the street from a huge garbage heap. That's in the case of India, it's just out in the open, just a huge mound of garbage, on which were many, many warthogs, hairy warthogs. So as I was going into the place, to interview him for the first time, I noticed this rather, for me, it was a kind of ugly scene, garbage and warthogs eating the garbage, and the smell of it and the whole thing. I went in for my interview with him, which lasted a couple hours, and I came out, and that scene was beautiful. I saw the symbiosis of it. It was sort of like a natural compost and recycling. I saw the little warthogs kind of trailing along with the mother, and suddenly I realized that the interpretation that I had had before was just coming from some smaller and sadder place in myself. And that when the channel had been so changed into this feeling of love and expansion and unity, whereby I really felt that these were just part of existence, just as I was, just as every creature, just as every blade of grass, and so on. When I felt that, it suddenly felt like my own self. It suddenly felt beautiful. Beauty is actually an experience, as I said. So may you walk in beauty. May you walk in beauty. May you, even sitting in traffic, everything. This is your precious life. Another one that's similar to the one about play is to indulge your creative impulses. So when I spoke about play, that's really about having fun. But now the creative impulses, maybe it's a slightly different thing, in that we are inherently creative creatures. And it often does feel good to do something creative, and again, specific to you. And it might be very, very simple. It might be just something like, repairing something in your house, or or cleaning the house even. Or it may be something more complicated, such as starting a new business or starting an art project or whatever it is. But let yourself have your creativity. Often people stop themselves from being creative out of a fear of failure or feeling of being judged, even if by themselves, like I'm not going to do it perfectly enough, it's not going to be right. And then the energy gets stagnant, it gets stopped inside. So let yourself have your creative impulses, right? And don't worry about the outcome. It's the process that's fun. And it also is a source of great joy. And lastly, contentment. Contentment is if you imagine like a cat by a warm fire, just there, just hanging out, just all is well. That even hearing the word has a calming effect. And you don't hear the word so much in our consumerist culture that doesn't give it much, gives it short shrift. Because we're often being induced to want more, to have more, right? We're being told to consume more, and that will make us happy. But contentment goes the other direction and says, thank you. Thank you so much for all that I do have. And it relaxes your system. It quiets. And it's kind of ironic that it's perhaps the most profound source of happiness, even though it's the quietest. I think that's all that I had to say. I don't know how many minutes I went, but